We was living life, no sight, all dark. We encountered light and transformed. We all sparked, now we making hits somewhere in the ballpark.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to the Time is Right podcast. My name is Scott Smith, and I'm your host here on the Time is Right. This is a podcast of Ripe Creatives. We're a ministry based in the great city of Philadelphia that leverages the arts for the purpose of missions and community transformation. Basically, here on this podcast, we go back in time to discuss events that happen in our community. A lot of times we're talking about events where we got booked to go somewhere else and perform on somebody else's thing. Sometimes we're talking about events that we actually produced here in the city of Philadelphia. Today is one of those, as we go back to April 9th, 2024 to talk about a creatives experience. Creatives Philly is the platform that we host on Tuesday nights here in the city of Philadelphia. We host galleries, we host open mics, we host concerts. We've even hosted some other variety of events over the years. But today, specifically, April 9th, 2024, we're talking about a creatives gallery. It was our sixth one. It was amazing. And it was our second in a row featuring a fashion artist instead of a painter or photographer. So to talk about this whole thing, I got a couple of guests in the room. The first one is pretty much on every episode. I think that he's on probably 4 out of 5 usually. Jarrett Top Mob Moses, welcome back to the pod.
Hello. Back again. I say that every time. Wow.
There you go. Welcome back, Top Mob Productions. He's the producer of this entire podcast. It's always good to have his voice on an episode as well.
Yes.
Another returner to the pod. She's the one in charge of the Creatives Galleries. Woo. She also runs the Ripe Worship Team. She also runs our Ripe Family Nights. She does all the things. But Creatives Gallery is her baby. She designed it. She created it. Emily Phillips, welcome back to the pod.
Hey, guys. So excited to be back.
It's always good to have Emily on an episode.
Yes.
We know that we're going to hear so many beautiful things from that wonderful person across the room. Our third and final guest on today's episode is a first-timer. He is here because he was the artist that we featured at our 6th Creatives Gallery, our second fashion show. Mm-hmm. Mr. Terry Bridges, welcome to the pod.
What up, what up? What's good, y'all? Glad to be here.
Excited to have you, Terry. Now, before we get into the actual conversation about this event, what led up to it, what you do, want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to the pod. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people listening that already know you because you shared this podcast with them. But a lot of people on this episode listening right now probably have no idea who you are.
I have no idea.
Jarrett knows who you are. Don't listen to him.
I know who you are. I don't know how you know anyone else.
Hey, man.
Terry, give your intro, talk about who you are, what you do, and then we'll talk about how you connected to Ripe and all that kind of stuff.
For sure. Well, first off, thank y'all for having me. Glad to be here. I'm just excited to just talk about the night, talk about the experience. Terry Bridges. I'm 23. Grew up in Philly pretty much all my life. I'm the founder, creative director, head designer, all spots in between of TRTL Collective. We are a fashion label that essentially reworks streetwear, thrifted pieces. We kind of chop them up, go to thrift stores, upcycle the whole bit, and make some new pieces out of it. So that's just a little bit about me. I'm an artist, photographer, all type of things. Yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Absolutely, man. It's crazy you're only 23 years old, and you already are running your own company and all this kind of stuff. You're a beast.
God is good.
Talk to us about how we connected with like the Ripe community. I know I met you at Headwater House, which was kind of like a gathering for Christian creatives, kingdom creatives. A few years ago, we've mentioned Headwater plenty of times on this podcast because there's been a lot of relationships that kind of came through there, people that we knew that we started going together. And our heart as Ripe has always been to be about the big C church, about the big K kingdom, stuff. And, support other people's things and go to things. So I know I met you there, but how did you and Emily kind of get connected? Same way or different?
I think the same way. So I know for me, I met Headwater was my way to meeting Ripe in general. So I was on, I want to say, what was that, 2020? No, 2021 to about 20 22-ish, I want to say, was like around the time I was part of Headwater. I was one of the art ministry leaders there. And so being able to be connected in that community, I met a lot of people. And I want to say, because I think I never really got tapped in with Ripe until I started hearing about these creative events. Obviously, I knew people that were part of Ripe. I never came to any of the events until you guys started doing some of the, until you guys moved to the Story Factory. I think that was really when I got tapped in. But Emily, I had just seen you around Headwater all the time. And then I think going to like City Reach Church and getting connected with those people who you are deeply connected with, I think that's probably where we started to connect.
Yeah, it's funny because I think I talked to your dad and met him before I ever met you, because he went to a Headwater event and was going around asking people a question of like, is there a desire for there to be a gap bridge between like generations within like worship and within like contemporary and old? Like, what do you see value in like the older generation? Because he just like wanted to release like audio stuff and like just kind of get this like idea into people's minds of like, you know, it's not just like young people want to do their own thing. They see the value in like the things that happened before them. And so I had a very at-length conversation with your dad. And I was like, sorry, who are you? And
That sounds about
he was
right.
like, oh yeah, Terry's my son. And I was like, got it. Because I was there when you did your like artist devotion thing at Headwater and like explained your creative process and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that was the first time that I ever like saw you, and then I met your dad.
Yeah, that sounds about right. My dad, Terry, well, I'm technically not a junior, but Terry Senior, we just call him. He's very much like that. Who grab a young person and talk to them for hours. So.
Oh, I loved it. I ate it up.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
He's the GOAT. Yeah, I've known your dad for a little while too through Keith.
Yeah.
Keith Reed, who's a good friend. And just kind of like a small world thing. When Headwater was happening, one of the things that I actually felt in the Headwater space was like, it is missing the older generation. And not necessarily your dad's age, but my age, which is another kind of lane in there. And so the thought was, let's talk to Keith. Let's talk to Doc and Drew, Synovia, Namar, a lot of the people like in their mid-30s that have been doing it for 10, 15 years in their artistic expression, and try to get some people around, because all you guys were in like your early 20s, right? Like the whole leadership team were all very early, very talented, very raw, but not a whole lot of like, here's actually how you do this for a lifetime, right? And so that was kind of the thought, inviting Keith in, and then your dad came with Keith, and it was pretty awesome. So that makes a lot of sense on how you guys got connected. Emily, talk to us about picking Terry. We're coming off of the Santos Gallery, which was our previous creatives gallery. It was a fashion show. How did you come to the conclusion you wanted to have Terry show fashion at the one in April?
So it's funny because initially the one in November, Santos's gallery, was supposed to be like a duo. It was gonna be Santos and Terry, because I was playing around with this idea of like, what does it look like to have two artists share space and like do this? And then I was just like, I don't like that. I don't like the idea of like splitting the attention. We'll do Santos's gallery and then we're gonna do Terry's gallery, because I think there was so much value in like people having their individual like space in that. And so I like had known that I wanted Terry to do a gallery like since the moment that I asked Santos, because originally I asked them to do one together and then I decided to split them up. But yeah, so I think it was once I realized that like, okay, like what does this look like to do fashion? I was like one of the only fashion people that I know who is like very incredible at what he does, like, is Terry. And so of course he was someone that I immediately asked.
You're the GOAT.
Thanks, guys.
Go ahead, Terry. Be amazing. Before we get into like the setup and the preparation for the event, can you just give a lot more backstory on Turtle And then if you can bleed that into the Nomads collection itself for this show, but just give us some backstory on Turtle Collective, what it is. And I mean, you gave a little bit of that in your intro, but go into more depth there, and then even the name Turtle too.
Yeah, for sure. So Turtle Collective, I think, really kind of was born out of a desire for me to find new ways to do art. I've always grown up being an artist, grew up in a family of artists. I was more on the fine art side in like high school, painting, sculpting, things like that. And so I always loved this idea of like what would happen if you like took your art and like wore it, And so I think Turtle kind of came out of this idea of like, how can I push fashion into that more creative, artistic space and not necessarily just go buy a t-shirt, it's cool, whatever, right? Obviously that's still valid, but like elevating fashion in a way. And so 2020 hit, I was in school. I went to Thomas Jefferson University. I was industrial design major. I was going to do shoes. I kind of liked it, not super into it. And so once COVID hit, I started playing around with this idea of, okay, what if I painted some clothes? And what if I took this shirt that I'm not wearing anymore and chopped it up and put it on a t-shirt or whatever the case is, right? And just kind of made art as I was going. And so that's where the brand sort of started. That idea of like, how can I take these materials that are already existing and reuse those to be even more creative? And so that's kind of where the brand is. So the brand really exists to take what pre-exists in the world and turn that into art. Going through school, I really got into this like sustainable fashion idea. And that kind of plays into the name Turtle. It's sort of like a double meaning because it's in the fashion world. There's this term called slow fashion, which is this idea of opposing fast fashion. So a lot of brands that are popular now that are just making clothes nonstop, that are pretty cheap, that are easy for people to wear, but so much landfill. So like, it just creates a lot of waste. So like slow fashion is this idea of taking your time and really valuing the pieces you make. And so Turtle is kind of turtles are slow, playing on that. But then also this idea of like, okay, turtles in the way that I've seen them are sort of like these wise creatures, the way they've been portrayed. They're slow in they're slow in the sense of like patient. And so I always thought about like, what if we made clothes that were like patient? What if we took our time and really valued the clothing we made instead of like, oh, the shirt ripped, I need to throw the whole thing out and buy something new. Like, no, like repair it or patch it up. And so that's what I try to do with the brand. I try to repurpose things, but then also give it a creative, artistic side type of thing. So going into Nomads, I really wanted to challenge myself with this one to sort of, each collection I try to like theme it and then obviously like create within that theme. And have those themes sort of still relate to what the brand identity is in a sense. And so with Nomads, I think I tried to like really figure out what my customer is or what I want that person to be. And so I thought of this like nomad in the sense of someone who's traveling. They don't necessarily exist in one specific place. And I think as like creatives, that's like a big thing. You're moving around, you're connecting with people, you're going here doing a show, but then you're also going here and doing a show. You're always kind of changing and revamping who you are. And so I thought like with the nomad, why don't I give that nomad clothing to go with them? Something that changes, something that they can like add pieces to. And so so the collection in a sense is kind of that like very rough, very rugged, like it looks like someone kind of pieced it together as they were like going around. Yeah.
Jeez. Oh my gosh. There's a lot to unpack right there. This is like pure gold. Yeah, you genuinely are one of the most impressive young men I've ever met.
I appreciate that.
The way that you think through what you're trying to accomplish. And a lot of people are really good at thinking about ideas. A lot of people are really good at executing ideas. And what has been so impressive to me about you is that you do both. You You don't just have great ideas, you execute them. Nomads, what number collection was this for you? How many collections had you done before Nomads?
I want to say this is probably like my maybe fifth or sixth, somewhere in there. Fifth or sixth collection.
Yep. At the age of 23. Okay. That's crazy. Shout out to Jefferson U, Philadelphia University.
Shout out them boys.
Rebrand. Your time there, studying what you were studying, diving into fashion, having this artistic background with your dad and your own upbringing, and then being able to put that stuff to pad. The biggest thing I just want to name is like you showed at this show specifically the recycling aspect so well. That's not just like lip service, like an idea of like slow fashion. You exemplified that in the Nomads collection.
Appreciate it.
Incredibly well. And I think that was probably one of the biggest themes and lessons that people took was like, oh, what does it look like to not waste anything? Which I think everybody can apply to their own lives in their own area of expertise or their own workflow. Like, how do I make sure that I'm maximizing what we use? Jarrett and I talk a lot about this from a stewardship perspective, like using equipment that was donated to us as often and as well as we can so that we're looking for ways to utilize the things that have been given to us or the things we spend money on. We're not just wanting that stuff to sit in a corner somewhere. We want to use everything, get the most out of everything that we have. And even in terms of content, right? Like recycling a show that we did in person, becoming content for the YouTube page, becoming content for the Instagram page to help support artists. Like, how do you use every last drop? Squeeze every last drop of wine out of the grape.
Right.
And it's like your life, dude. So I just want to affirm that in you.
Yeah, man.
Let's talk about the show itself. Emily, talk us leading up to April 9th. April 8th is always setup day where you get into the story factories where we've done these galleries for the last 5 and, setting up the pipe and drape and getting the lights and everything. I think this one was a little bit easier for you because you had just done a fashion show. So you kind of knew what you were getting yourself into. But talk to us just about like your vision for the night.
Yeah, I feel like this one just felt kind of like clockwork. Like I knew exactly what needed to be done, what needed to get up, what needed to be hung and placed right the night before for the next day to go well. And even the way things like the order of things being put up, because I just done Santos's, I had like a lot more insight of like, oh, this is what worked and this is what didn't. And so, yeah, it felt like a really easy setup for the most part. And I had all of the materials that I needed. There weren't any like random, I have to go find this right now. So that was great.
I may or may not have had to run to the tool store.
Well, that was because my wire cutters decided to crap out on me.
That's true.
And so I needed better ones. But then the ones that you bought, they were like super fancy because the lady was like, these are the best ones. And you said, yes, the best. And then they ended up being like multi-use. So it made the wire cutter part like harder for me to use.
You know what? I tried my best.
But you did so great and I appreciated it so much.
Thank you.
You did great, Scott.
Thanks.
You did great. You did great.
Setup day is always great for these galleries. Like it's just a joy to be together, and Emily to be in her bag of not asking for help and trying to do everything herself. But it is amazing. Just a really good time, and I think it's such a beautiful like culture setter for the next day. Like I can't imagine coming in on the day of and trying to set everything up that morning and then have a successful, not anxious, not worried, not frustrated kind of event, but getting in there the day before. Shout out to the Story Factory for always letting us do that.
Yeah.
Because we really appreciate your hospitality there so that we can make sure that the next day's event goes really well. So thank you to the Story Factory. Getting closer to the event, what was kind of going on in your world, Terry, in terms of getting the collection together? Like, was Nomads already a completed collection, or was this a vision that you were trying to get done in time for the show? Talk to us about your procrastination.
Yeah.
No tease.
I think to answer shortly, it was a mix of both. I think I it actually kind of worked out because kind of what Emily was saying earlier, when she first reached out about doing the show in November, I think I was kind of in the midst of designing something. I was like, I know I wanted to do a collection, not sure what it is. But then actually kind of worked out that you moved it, because I think for me, I had already like previously was like, I think by next spring I want to make a collection. And so then when we kind of reconnected and you said, I was like, oh, all right, bet, cool. I'll have something done for then. So I had initially started it in around December. And it started with something that actually I learned at Jefferson. Shout out to them. Mind mapping. So that's like something I do a lot with my collections, is like, because a lot of it is conceptual, kind of like what you were saying earlier about like some people are good at the background, some are the execution. So for me, I have an idea and I'll like grab a Pinterest board, I'll like make something, but I like to do like almost word association. So I'll like take this big, and if for those who are at the show, I think the printout of this word mind map was there, but I'll take like a big piece of paper, blank, and write like one big random word in the middle. And then I'll like kind of just from there, okay, what words associate, how can I translate the words I'm trying to say into design concepts and aesthetics and things like that. And so originally the collection was gonna be something totally different, but then the Nomad thing kind of came out of that. And so I was like, oh, wait a minute, I might have something here. So from there, it turned into just finding research. I am very like research driven when it comes to like designing my collections. And so I look at like vintage stuff. I look at what's out now. I look at what are some new upcycling methods that I want to like incorporate. How can I like, revamp clothes in a different way? So I take a lot of that, put it together, and then from there start to sketch. Rough sketches, something random. I might do something like so specific, or I'll have like just a random blob of something, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do that later. So it was a lot of that. And then maybe about like a month or so before the show, I started getting into the actual production of it. Like, okay, I had everything laid out, and so everything I do is in my room on the sewing machine, so it's all me sewing. So I started doing that. And then I think the beauty of having that team there that day was the fact that I could sort of not be all on me. Because I've done shows where like it's like just me and they're like expecting me to do like 80 things. And I'm like, I'm just one person, bro. I don't know. So that was definitely a blessing. And I think on my end, being able, like having experience from like other shows, I think I definitely was able to kind of like what you're saying, just get straight to it. It's like, I already know what I need to do. I already know I have this, I have that. I have the pieces. And so, yeah. And you guys really helped out with like getting the pieces and coordinating like what would look best on the wall, which I appreciated, because I just was like, I know I want this, but I don't know how to set it up. So I appreciated that.
So just to kind of put it in perspective, for the Nomads collection, what was the final like number of pieces that were displayed that night?
So in total, it was 26 pieces. So I had 16 on the models going through the runway, and then 10 hanging up on the walls.
It's amazing. It's a heck of a lot of stuff. Plus all like your personal merch and everything at your actual merch table as well. But 26 one-of-one original pieces handmade by you in your bedroom with your sewing machine. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a collection. Emily, can you just kind of walk us through the overview of the night itself? We get to, 6 o'clock, doors open on April 9th. It's a Tuesday night. We're at the Story Factory. 6 p.m. rolls around. We've prayed, all the things. The models are getting their clothes on, all that kind of stuff. In the dressing room, not in public. Amen. But 6 o'clock rolls around. Just talk us through what the flow of the night of one of these fashion show galleries looks like, and then we can get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, so doors open at 6 o'clock, and people are able to come in and walk around and see what is hanging on the walls, which a lot of it is the purpose of the pieces being hung on the walls is to really show kind of Terry's thought process of how he creates and what things look like once they're finished versus what the sketch looks like. And so people are able to walk through and see the room as a whole. And then also there's like an area for refreshments and places where they can just talk to other people who are there. So it's a lot of just like networking and getting to know people and meaningful conversations and stuff like that until around 7:25-ish, which is when Scott goes up and he talks about creatives and talks about why we're here, which is always really meaningful because I think a lot of people who come to the galleries don't have an idea of what it actually is beyond like, oh, I'm here to support so-and-so, or, oh, I saw this on the street and I want to come in. And so it's a great time to have like a touch point of Ripe Creatives, Creatives Philly, that kind of thing. And then that's when we get up for the runway. So the models go through at 7:30, 7:35. They DJ Ant plays music for the runway and really sets a tone there. And after the runway, we do Heart Behind the Art, where people ask questions. I ask questions to Terry, open up the floor and the space for other people to ask questions. And then it's our last push of everybody buy something, do not leave here without something, and then clean up. And I had an all-star team for Terry's gallery, like the team who were there to serve. I was so grateful for. My friend Kayla, who doesn't live in Philly, came to visit and she ran the door so amazingly. And Devin, who is a past gallery artist, she helped with the merch table for Terry, and Rosie did a lot of the model runway touch point stuff of like, okay, it's time for you to walk. And
who's also a past gallery
yes,
artist.
who's also a past gallery artist. And then Isaac, who is also a past gallery artist, took some video of the night. And then Chrissy and Tosin, who are amazing photographers, helped out. And it was just beautiful. My team, I was so grateful for that. It meant a lot that a lot of the past artists were there and serving, not just there to enjoy, but they were there and serving, which meant a whole lot.
So the question is, Terry, what role do you want to have at the next gallery?
Y'all didn't see this, but when she said that, Scott gave me the death stare just now. It's kind of cool.
You better pick something.
Hey, I'm here.
You better pick something.
Let me know when and where.
November's the next gallery.
Say less.
No, it is really amazing, the community that you've developed through this. You know, people like Rosie and Marguerite becoming closer, and Devin and Isaac becoming closer, like all these cross-pollination of relationships. And I think what's beautiful is so many of them go to different churches, and you've kind of been a bridge builder, even just through the galleries. We already do bridge building through Ripe Worship and through the Ripe Artists and through our events. But just even through the artists that you've picked for every gallery, it just seems divine. Like you've done that. I think you've heard the Lord's voice. You know, you haven't just said, oh, this makes sense, so let me do it. Like you've really thought through and prayed through who you want to have. And I think one after another, it's just been a beautiful thing to witness. So shout out to you for that. Terry, talk to us about just like, you know, getting in there from your perspective, 6 o'clock, doors open. You've already talked about how it was a little bit easier than maybe some of the other shows you've done in the past, where it's like all on you. You have this huge team of people. Emily just name dropped a lot of them. But, you know, 6 o'clock, before we get to the runway and the Heart Behind the Art, like anything going on in your heart, just that first hour, like seeing the room pack out?
Yeah, man, it was it was cool, man. And I think, and I will get, you know, into it later towards like the end of the show too, but I think just in general, this show like definitely hit a little bit different, because in the past, you know, it's just been like just me and like a bunch of other designers at other shows. But I think to have my own show like definitely hit. So I think leading up to it, I felt pretty good. Like I was good. I was like getting ready. I think once I started seeing like people come in, and it was just a blessing that like a lot of my friends and family got to come and support. I think that was when I was starting to be like, oh snap, like this is pretty cool. This is pretty cool. So it was like, I don't know. It was just like a good feeling to like see people like start to pour in. I was like kind of stressed a little bit because some of my models were like taking a little long to come, but that's how sometimes that's how
I wasn't gonna bring it up, but yeah, that definitely happened.
Man, the background of trying to get all of them together was something else. So, but that's how models be sometimes. They tell you they'll be there one time, and then you be like, "Where you at, bro?"
Yeah.
But it was good. It was good. I felt, I don't know if confident is the right word, but just like I just felt good. I think a lot of shows I get like sometimes I get stressed about like the last minute, like trying to get things together, but I think a lot of it came down to like the team and the environment and like working with friends. I think a lot of the stress I would have from a normal show kind of like eased because I knew like everyone had the best intentions for the show, you know?
Yeah, it's good. Teamwork makes the dream work.
You feel me?
One of the things I want to shout out, the models. I thought it was so interesting that you chose, like you had the most mixed bag I could ever imagine, right? So you had people that were even a part of our community, like Jake Doggett, never been a model before.
It's my dog, bro.
You know, he was like learning how to be a model on the fly.
Literally 20 minutes before.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
He was like doing his walks and stuff, and I was cracking up. I was like, Jake, you're going to be fine. Just breathe, bro. But then you also had like bona fide professional models. Like this is what they do. Like this is actually their livelihood. Right. They are models. So how did you like decide to put that amalgamation of people together? I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, man. It's I think the model process for me is always really fun to get into. I think with this show, I wanted to definitely have like culturally, ethnically, gender-wise, have a good mix. But I think also I wanted it to be people that like I was tight with, or at least have worked with in the past and have created relationships with. I think a lot of times, like when you do shows, depending on like how, you know, where you're at, how you do them, you kind of just get assigned a model and you may not know them, or, you know, and that's the opportunity where you obviously get to know them. So a lot of the professional models were like through Philly Fashion Week, through Fashion Incubator. Those are like just connections that I've been blessed to make as I do shows, and models I worked with. Like two of them were like, I've known them for a while, but it was like the first time I actually got to work with them. One of them was like the third time I've worked with them, fourth time actually. Shout out Reese. One of them was like 16. It was like this kid I've been mentoring for a little bit. Shout out Ezra, man, and his brand Nova. And so it was something that was definitely on my heart to like, if I'm going to do the show and I'm going to make it this personal, I definitely want it to like, I don't know, be a mixed bag of like people I'm really tied in with, and also people that like I trust and want the best intentions for them, and like giving them a platform to add to their portfolio or get connected with other people. So yeah.
Good dude. So that takes us really to the runway at 7:30. As Emily said, you know, I got up and did my little spiel and told everybody to support Emily Phillips. It's like, give her money. You know, just kind of talk through even the finances of creatives and why Emily's heart is to make these things free, and why her heart is to bless the artist in the way that she is. And it's like, hey, in that spirit of generosity, if you can be generous towards Emily, we would really appreciate that for her. But then, you know, as you said, Angie, shout out to Angie, by the way, all night.
The greatest.
He DJs for 3 hours straight, takes no minutes off. He's not like putting on a playlist on Spotify and walking away. He spins every record in, every record out. He actually gets really annoyed when people don't do that, because he feels like that's like what a DJ does, you know? So he's like always super professional with that. And shout out to Jarrett as well, you know, running the sound from the room and all the microphones and everything else.
Yes, sir.
But also designed the lights to be able to use the lights in the Story Factory just like he did. He figured out in Santos's gallery, which we talked about in the last Creatives Gallery episode about you figuring that out. But the same thing, you got to click a button and make the lights go a different way. And all the lights that were facing the walls now become a runway in the middle of the room. And it's just a vibe. Yeah. Like, it is an absolute vibe for a show.
It's fire, bro.
So shout out to both you, Ann, and you, Jarrett. Appreciate you.
Thank you. It's fun. It's like you said, because we had done it before, like it made it simple, but that also let me be like a little more creative. So since I knew how to do it, I didn't have to spend the time figuring that out. So I was able to spend the time refining it a little bit more.
Yeah, it looked fantastic.
Yeah, you killed it, bro.
But the models come out, they do their walks, they do their little twists and turns, they get their photos taken. Every piece so unique, so different, so stinking cool. They go back and then they all come out together with you leading the charge. And this room that is, what, a couple hundred people, 180 people or so in the room or whatever it was.
That's crazy.
Are just cheering and clapping and screaming and yelling your name. It's such like a really cool moment. And I think you're right, Em. Like you could have done Santos and Terry together and it would have been beautiful, but like, do you get that moment?
Yeah.
You know, so I think you made the right decision to split them and have them each get their own date because it is so special for one person to get that level of honor and respect and love and support.
Yeah. That was my whole thing is like, there's always a moment like during the galleries that I'm like, this is why these are important. This is why this has value. This is why I continue to do these and ask artists and stuff like that. And I think one of those moments is always like Heart Behind the Art, whenever people get to share and ask questions and the artist gets to answer them. And I just like, that moment is so unmatched, and it makes everything worth it. It's like, even if one person leaves encouraged, like the whole night was worth it.
Yep. So let's talk about the Heart Behind the Art, the interview. You've been doing this since the very beginning. Marguerite's Gallery in 2022, I think was the first one right after Good Soil. We actually have, I think it was like episode 2 or 3 here on this podcast was about that gallery.
It was pretty early.
And so 6 in a row, you've done this Heart Behind the Art thing. I think it's here to stay. We finally recorded it for the first time.
Praise the Lord.
We got it recorded, so it might become a YouTube video. Check it out.
I'm going to need that, John.
We all going to need it. But talk to us about the interview with Terry.
So I think at this point, I kind of have some set questions that I'm like, these are important for people to know. And after our interview, a few people came up to me and were like, thank you so much because you asked a question that I wanted to know the answer to. And now I have so much clarity behind Turtle and behind like Terry and Nomads and all of that. And it makes so much more sense now. And I love it. And I was like, praise the Lord. That's what this is for.
That's dope. That's dope.
So I think I usually ask like 5 to 6 questions and then open it up to the room. And I think when it's the time for the room to ask questions, that's when it gets really special. Because people have some really good questions.
I think with the impact, I guess this is almost something that's like saying a credit to you, Em, because with your questions, you're saying like, yeah, they're generic questions. They're questions you ask over and over again, but it's questions that someone's going to ask at some point. So let's ask it now and let people go more in depth with their other questions.
Right, yeah.
Like you're opening the gate and taking the first couple steps to get everyone past what everyone wants to know so that they can go deeper into what else they want to know. Because we have a time limit. We can't go forever. We can't go for an hour of people asking questions. Like we just can't do it. And you kind of like pushing everyone forward past those points is really good.
Thanks. Shout out to your 16-year-old Ezra, right?
Yeah, Ezra, yeah.
He was like one of the highlights of my whole night. Like he was so special. We had a great conversation and just sharing about like how you've impacted his life and stuff. And it was so special and so kingdom, like the way that you're like encouraging him and bringing him in and close, and that like touched my heart so big. Like, yeah.
That's what's up. Appreciate that. Yeah. I think recently God's definitely been putting that on my heart of like giving back to people and like putting it on and like, you know, somebody did it for me. I gotta move it forward. So I love that kid. He's so creative and very much pushes me to like keep going. First time I met him, he like talked to me as a 14-year-old the way I, as like a, I guess at the time, 22-year-old, I was like, how do you know any of that? I was like, this kid is crazy.
That's so good.
That to me, I was like, oh, this kid is like ripe. like in terms of our culture,
Yeah.
you know, and that's not to like put any like onus on you for any conversation about that, but it's more just, man, you fit like our DNA and culture so much. I remember like for Leah's concert, right? We talked about that moment that she had with Nyla on stage performing with a 14-year-old and giving her the platform, even though the platform was hers. And I felt like every answer you gave, not just about Ezra, but every answer you gave was giving somebody else flowers. Whether it was your dad, whether it was Ezra, whether it was friends, whether it was Philly U, Jefferson, people that impacted you or taught you certain things, Philly Fashion Week, shout out to Keith. Like you gave flowers in the moment that's supposed to be all about you. You were like, nah, let me reflect this light to everybody else other than myself. And I was just like, dang, that kid. I like this kid.
So
you know?
beautiful.
I was like, I really
that,
like this
man.
kid a lot. Like, there's just something so special about that humility. And it's not a projected humility, it's a genuine humility. Like, that's actually your heart. And it was so on display.
Oh, yeah.
So on display. Any like questions from that time, either from Emily or from the audience that just stick out?
I don't have a specific question, but I do have a person who like he goes to my church and he's like older. He's probably mid-30s.
Thanks.
I know. Sorry. He's older
Jeez,
than me.
man.
Okay. He's older than me. He's like mid-30s.
Many
when I
City
s-
Reach, that's ancient.
When I saw him at the gallery, I was like, there's no way that this man is here right now. Because like I had no idea that he was gonna come. And so he came up to me and he was like, this changed my life. This encouraged me more than I ever thought. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I saw a flyer for it and I was like, this looks cool, let me go. And he used to paint a lot in Puerto Rico, and that was like his passion for such a long time. He's a lawyer now. And he was like, this night encouraged me so much that I'm gonna go home and paint something. Like I like Terry's answers about like what does it look like to wear your art, like that like I want to do that. Like and this man, he's a grown adult with a thriving career, and he's like, this encouraged me to like step back into something that I let die. And that was like so encouraging. I was like, oh, my gosh. And then I saw him like a week later and he was wearing your merch shirt and he's like, tell Terry that I love it. And I was like,
that's
I will.
fire. Oh, I think I know who that is. I think he reached out to me on Instagram. I think I might know who you're talking about. But that's so fire because I think that, and thank you for sharing that, because that, I think a goal of mine and something I also say with Turtle and like whenever I like present the brand is that like I want people to see my stuff and then get inspired to do their own thing. And so that's dope. That's dope. That's dope. I do have one actually. I actually do have and it's a person that reached out. So there was a friend of mine who was actually going to model in the show. But last minute, some things got mixed up. We weren't able to get him in the show, but he still showed up because some of his friends and other models that he know that are all a part of the same like modeling agency were there. So he just came to support. And so there was a part of the show where you had asked me about like the brand. Emily had asked me about the collection and like inspiration behind it. And I was talking about this like idea of like the third life, which is like another, that might even turn into another collection at some point. But just this idea of like life cycles that clothing has, where it's like you make something, it gets sent, manufactured, factory makes it, goes to the store, that's the first life. Then you take it, wear it, that's the second life. And then like you thrift something and I come in and like take that from the thrift store or if it's donated or whatever the case is and repurpose it to have a new life. It's quote unquote third life. And I turn that into like this whole idea of like what in our lives is like our third life. What are like things that either we've gone through and God's kind of like, hey, you've been delivered from this, you've worked, like now let's get this second, third, whatever the life is. And encouraging people to kind of, look at themselves and like, what are things that you can sort of switch up about your own life and go forward with it. And so this friend of mine came up to me and like literally like had said that like he, I think a year ago, and I hope he's okay with me sharing this, I'm not gonna say his name, but he had some like major like health complications. And to the point where like it was pretty serious. And so for him, it was like after that moment, he was like, all right, God, whatever, like you've given me a second chance at life. Now I can go on. And so for him to hear me talk about that third life thing and be so related to his life, he's like, now I'm on my third life. And I think that really hit me because it's like, and kind of what you were saying, Emily, like the ideas and the things that keep me going are now resonating with other people in ways I would have never imagined.
That's what's up. As you were talking, I just was thinking about Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15, where it says, pay careful attention then how you walk, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time because the days are evil. And that idea of making the most of the time, that word in the Greek is actually redemption, like redeeming something, redeeming the time. And that's like what you're talking about, is like you're buying back something to make better use of it.
Right.
And that's the third life, so to speak. I'm just like, oh yeah, this makes even more sense in this context where somebody's seeing it through the vantage point of their life than even just fashion. But that's what you're talking about.
That's
You're
dope.
like, it's redemption in visual form. It's a gospel presentation through stuff hanging on a wall.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Wow, yeah.
because this is all stuff. And the really interesting thing, the wasting thing, I said this earlier, but just to bring it back, like you showed the scraps of what was left over and how you even use the scraps for stuff.
Yeah.
Like that nothing gets wasted. Yeah, that resonates a heck of a lot. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
I was going to end the episode with the impact of the night, but we've already been kind of talking about that.
Yeah.
These different people who were impacted. I know I was blessed. I was impacted. Our whole team had nothing but amazing things to say, leaving the gallery and afterwards. And I think one of the general impacts of our creatives galleries that it's hard to quantify and be like, this is what it did, is just the relationship building in the room.
Yeah.
Yes, all these people get connected to you and your stuff, but also people get connected to each other.
Right.
And we don't even know what that's going to produce down the line of artists working together on different projects because they met in that room because of you bringing them together. So that's definitely always an impact. Let's just end this episode talking about the support for you, Terry, at this event. That has been one of the things that has been like a shining star about the Creatives Galleries, is that people have come out and they have supported an artist tangibly to help that artist take the next step. So whether that's a painter selling original pieces off a wall, if it's a photographer selling a bunch of prints of their work, or in the case of Santos and now you, people buying one-of-one stuff off the walls or off of models, and then other people buying T-shirts and hats to just support the brand in general.
Yeah.
How did that go for you in terms of the support that night with all the people that were in the room?
Oh man, it was amazing, man. And it's again, showing love to Emily, showing love to Scott, showing love to Ripe for putting that on and being able to support. That was a big blessing for me for sure. It was cool, man. I think a lot of people really resonated with like just looking at the pieces and just being like, just like it was funny, like the way that some people are standing as if it's like a museum, like just looking at them and like asking questions. And whether you buy it or not, I think just for me, that's cool. Just being interested in the world that I've placed myself in is really cool. But yeah, man, it was definitely a great support on my end for sure. A lot of people love the T-shirts, the Nomad T-shirts. A lot of people love the tote bags, the hats. Everyone loves a hat, a bucket hat. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it was good. It was good. It was just great to just like show my work out there.
I gotta say, even just like this, as simple as the sketches were, like those were really cool to look at. Like that was one of my favorite parts of walking around.
Appreciate that, yeah. And I think that was something that like. And Emily encouraged me to do like use the sketches, because I think that's like the benefit of this type of event. You don't really get with fashion shows, especially when it's like a bunch of people, you do like hours and hours to set up for like a 5-minute walk, and people only see your stuff for like 5 minutes, if that, you know what I mean? And then they're on to the next designer. But I think it was really cool that like just as simple as sketches, like that had an impact on you, and being able to see like behind the designs and like showing further support from there.
So good. It's funny because it's like going from a 5-minute representation to a 3-hour
Right.
representation, right? 180 minutes instead of 5. And it's almost like Turtle.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about slow fashion and, you know, all this kind of stuff. It's like slow getting to be inspired by the art.
Right.
You know, slow down here.
Right.
And I think that that's been the pace of the galleries. Like our open mics are pretty like bang, 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 bang. People are performing for 5 minutes. Our concerts is like a slow down. Get to enjoy this artist over the course of this 40-minute set. And I think the galleries, in a way, like over the course of 3 hours, like just sit there and look at this stuff and then go back to this round table and have a conversation with some other people about it. And you just, that's got to be a beautiful thing as an artist to have that kind of space.
It's a super beautiful thing. And I think too, like touching back on the support, something I was definitely wanting to like mention is like, I think as an artist, and especially for me, as of right now, being like a solo artist running the brand, all the support is very much appreciated. And I think too, it's dope that like people are now a part of the journey. You know, a lot of the funds that I got from this collection, from the show, I'll definitely be putting towards the next collection I do. And I think it's really dope that like there are people that can say that they were a part of the next thing I do, or just a part of that night. Even if it's like, you know, you have a piece that you bought that like you can say you were there that night, or you have pictures that you took saying that you were there that night. Like I think just all the support, whatever it is, whether it be financial, whether it be you just showed up, whether you texted me, tagged Turtle on Instagram, just all of that goes a big way.
I think this gallery was just another really special time. I think each of them has been so different, but the end result has been the same, which is people coming to a space, being touched by something, supporting an artist, and going home with it. And then they get to leave with like the memory and the tangible thing of that night. And I think that I don't know, it's just such a sweet thing that I get to be a part of every time. And even this one, I got the most amazing picture of 4 out of the 6 gallery artists. And I love this picture so much, and I will hold it near and dear to my heart until the next picture that I get with the next gallery artist and everyone else who has been a part of it. Yeah, I'm just super like grateful to be able to know artists like you and get to create this platform to, just put you out there, because like people need to hear you speak and see what you create and know you in that way. So, yeah.
Amen, amen. Shout out to TRTL Collective. Make sure you guys look it up on Instagram, website, all the things. It's an amazing, amazing brand. And you guys should definitely get connected to Terry if you're here as one of the supporters and partners of Ripe Creatives. Please look for ways to support and partner with TRTL Collective as well as they continue to build here in the city of Philadelphia and beyond. Shout out to just everything that led to this happening, right? We started this conversation all the way back in 2021, meeting Terry at a random, Headwater event. And 3 years later, we're putting together an amazing show together. So everything is interconnected. It's always a spider web of connectivity and relationships and conversations that ultimately end up in stories like this one. The other thing beneath the surface of this whole event happening is that a lot of people give a lot of money so that we can do these events. And so we just want to say thank you to all of the people who partner with us, that give one-time donations or are monthly partners and supporters of Ripe Creatives. It's because of your generosity towards us that we can take risks to do events like this. And so I want to encourage you, if you're here listening to this episode, you've been blessed by it, you're blessed by the Creatives Gallery space and what Emily's doing, please jump on our website, ripecreatives.com, click the give button, and consider supporting Emily Phillips specifically as a way to say that you're behind these Creatives Gallery events. Emily does a whole lot of other things outside of the Creatives Galleries as well, but your support towards her supports these events. And we would love to continue to do them into the future. We don't take a dime from the artist. That's a very unique thing here in the city of Philadelphia, but really nationally, that the artist keeps 100% of what they sell at our events. And we're super proud of that. That's only possible because of your generosity supporting what we do so we can support them. And so every dollar that you give us in ways actually produces $2 for an artist somewhere here in the city of Philadelphia. So please support us, partner with us so we can partner and support artists in our region. Emily, thank you. Terry, thank you. Jarrett Top Mop, thank you for producing all of our podcasts here on The Time Is Right. And until next time, y'all, stay right.
Peace.
Hey, I'm a young man seeking understanding. I take grace and mercy and I load it in the cannon. Bang, bang.